Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax guys.
Hey, you know what? It's a great day in America.
Okay.
We wake up and we can go places and do things. And we don't have to worry about a whole lot. Costs a little more to do stuff, but it's still a wonderful place to live. Yay, America.
It is. And it would be an even more wonderful place to live if we could get rid of the income tax and the Internal Revenue Service and replace it with a FAIRtax. You need to hold the scrolling banner up there again one more time. Let's tell folks where they can get one of these things.
Yeah,
you can go to fairtaxstore.org. And they're very inexpensive. Shipping is free.
Yeah, and get a couple of them because they are really handy to have. You can open them up like this and fan yourself some of the events, but you can also stand on a street corner, for example, with the banner and hold it, like they do for tax time and everything.
It's getting kind of late in this election cycle, but if you get one of those things, the election season is going to start again in about a week.
I had a great idea. Have you seen those guys that stand on the corner? I mean, we have them up here in North Carolina, and I'm not going to give the name of the business, but they dress in these costumes right out near tax time, and they stand up and they do this and all this stuff. Let's go and get somebody to stand with them doing this.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we've got a tax preparation place down here that sends people out kind of dressed up in a costume of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, that's who I was
talking about. That's quite a thing. If you want to talk about an agency that tramples on the spirit of liberty, you could not do better than the IRS. So if we can get rid of that, that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
That works.
Replace the income tax. It doesn't diminish revenue to the Treasury. So good services that you require or you have coming, like your Social Security check or Medicare or Medicaid and all that, and an operation of the government, that's a debate for another show. You don't have to worry about that because the FAIRtax replaces the income from the income tax. Today it's the income tax, and the next day it's the FAIRtax.
All right. Well, let's take a look at what the FAIRtax will replace.
Yeah.
Some of the crazy things that the Congress critters are trying to put in the tax code. My favorite portion of FAIRtax Power Radio, the Congress.gov segment. What was that?
I said it's unbelievable what they are up to.
Oh, you ain't going to believe some of the stuff we found this time. But this is what you do. You go to Congress.gov, you put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes at the top of the search bar. On the filters there on the left, select legislation in the current Congress. And as of the day we're recording this, Friday, October 28th, 2,049 hits are returned on that search. And if you arrange them according to newest to oldest, at the top of the list, get this one, the Trust in Government Act of 2022. That's H.R. 9233 from Representative Katie Porter in California. Trust in Government Act.
Love it.
That has a nice sounding ring to it. Actually, a lot of the times when we do these Congress.gov segments, all we have are a short description. But this time we've actually got the text. And when you do that Internal Revenue Code search, it actually searches through the text of the bill if they've got that in there as well. And it says this bill is to improve the service delivery of agencies and public perception of agency interactions, and of course for other purposes.
Of course.
And you scroll down to it, and it says reforms in order to improve the overall economy, efficiency, and management of government operations and activities, reduce the paperwork of agencies, and provide high-quality services to the public. Then it lists a bunch of things that they want to do. Among them is the Secretary of the Treasury shall design and deliver new online tools and services to the Internal Revenue Service to expand electronic filing options for taxpayers, provide the option for taxpayers to receive customer support via secure email, and provide the option for taxpayers to schedule customer support telephone callbacks. which all sounds well and good. But then the thing that really strikes me with this, Bob, if you have to introduce an act of Congress to improve the service delivery of agencies and to improve public perception of the agencies, you are admitting that your service delivery stinks and your public perception of your agencies is in the toilet.
It's hard to believe that they would not know that. I mean, just the frailties of that whole system are rampant, and we always joke about their computer still being on DOS 1.0. Kids, go out there and ask your parents or your grandparents, or go to your favorite search engine and type in DOS 1.0, and you might see a computer that the Internal Revenue Service would be using to process tax returns today.
Yeah, I vaguely remember using that.
25 meg hard drive. That's really great. I had a computer that was a 25 meg hard drive, Bob. It was 25 megs. It was huge.
Wow, how huge that is. But we need to expand electronic filing options. We need to provide the option for taxpayers to receive customer support via email. Absolutely. And to provide the option for taxpayers to schedule customer support telephone callbacks. Actually, we don't. We just need to get rid of all that, pull the IRS out by the roots and replace it with a FAIRtax.
Now, think about all the money that they're asking for and how much money is appropriated to their operation that just got enacted. Think about that not having to be spent on the Internal Revenue Service. I mean, just think about it for a moment. I'll wait.
Oh, mercy. Okay, well, let's move along here.
It's unbelievable how much money goes into that operation that there's no benefit really other than their own self-perpetuation. Continue, my friend. Continue.
I shall. This HR 9231. This is from Representative Darren LaHood in Illinois. The Service Worker Economic Stabilization Act. Wouldn't you love to stabilize or economic stability to service workers? Now,
yeah.
It's funny, how the title of bills sometimes has nothing to do with what's actually in them. But you take the Service Worker Economic Stabilization Act, HR 9231, is actually a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide for a temporary allowance for entertainment business expenses and for other purposes. Now, this does two things. One, it says a temporary allowance. So this, again, is going to contribute to the instability of the tax code because when this temporary allowance goes away and things go back to the way they were. But what I really find a bit of a head scratcher here is that I thought entertainment business expenses were already, allowed for other.
There are certain percentages, and you have to keep up with who you met with and when you ate and what, not necessarily what you ate. But that would, I guess, appear on the bill, on the actual ticket that you paid from. But I mean, you're already keeping up with that, all of it.
Okay, well, there's just a bunch of legally gobbledygook in here I'm not going to worry too much about. But now they are providing some more instability in the tax code, providing a temporary allowance for entertainment business expenses. That's HR 9231. And oh, man, you just gotta shake your head and say, what are they doing? Now, this is the next one on the list. This is the ABC Act of 2022. Now, of course, I remember what ABC stands for there in North Carolina.
Adult beverage control.
I don't think that's the same thing. This is HR 9214. From Representative Andy Kim of New Jersey, the ABC Act of 2022. This one actually has some text in it too, so let me open that up and take a look. And this is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide an exclusion from gross income for interest on certain small business loans. Again, I'll go back to what Professor Kendall said when we talked to him. One of the biggest problems with an income tax is defining what income is.
Right.
So interest for certain small business loans would be collected by a bank. So this is not aimed at individuals. This is aimed at a bank. And actually further down in the bill, it defines what a bank is. So that's all.
There's a place where there's money.
And that's almost as good as defining what municipal solid waste is. The craziness that we've got in the tax code. But to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide an exclusion from gross income for interest on certain small business loans.
That's something. And let's take just a moment and talk about the fact that why does the federal government need to know anything about how much money you make and where you make it, and really where you spend it? There's talk about digital dollars and things like that coming from the federal government. They're going to know everything about where you spend your money. I mean,
remember that they actually did propose a while back, and the public backlash, put a stop to it. That they wanted the Internal Revenue Service to be notified anytime there was a bank transaction in anybody's account of $600 or more.
Right, and it doesn't. Yeah, it's just, and you gotta really stay on them. You have to be vigilant in your activities surrounding the government, the federal government especially. But when it comes to the Internal Revenue Service, they have more information on you than probably your mom or dad do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Steve Hayes noted this in the chairman's report a good while back now, that some people were thinking that, the IRS needs all this new money so they can get these, modernized computer systems. And when they get those, people won't have to fill out tax returns anymore. The IRS will know so much about your finances, they'll just send you a bill.
That's right. They'll just tell you how much you owe and send it on in.
Yeah, they will fill out your income tax return for you. Only problem with that, of course, is that I don't trust the government to just help itself to how much of my money is they think they want to get. But if you're going to send me a tax return that you've already filled out, what have I got to do with it? I've got to go through with it and make my calculations and see if it's right or not. I've got to go through the whole process again anyway. To verify that what they sent me was good. So
the FAIRtax is a time saver, because all of what we've just talked about goes away. It's bye. See you later. No problem. Have a good rest of your life, IRS, now defunct, because your stress level goes down. You get to spend your money how you want to. You get to make your money where you want to. You're going to pay taxes. Same amount of money goes to the Treasury because it's revenue neutral, but the FAIRtax is a tax on consumption that gets paid at the cash register when you make a payment, when you buy something.
Yeah, and the tax is included in the price. It's not added on like the state sales taxes in a lot of places are. If the price tag on an item is $100, that $100 includes the FAIRtax. It's not added onto it like that. But the government already knows how much you make, where you make it from, stuff like that. And I'm convinced that if the IRS is allowed to continue to exist, the day will come when they will get something like that, and they'll soon be able to track how much you spent, as well as how much you've made, and where you spent it. And when this is just a really bad system from a privacy standpoint. It's a horrible system from a error-prone, fraud-prone, kind of standpoint as well. It's a horrible system from the process of evasion. It is so easy to evade the federal income tax when it's based on you reporting your own income and claiming your own deductions. So you report less income and you claim more deductions and you get more money. And you're dealing with an agency that can send hundreds of refunds to the same address and not realize that, hey, there's something fishy here. We need to replace the whole system with the FAIRtax.
Absolutely. And the more we hammer this home, Bob, I think, folks listen and they join it, and we appreciate you being out there. We want you to get fired up like we are and see the benefit, and let your friends and neighbors, your aunts and uncles, children, your neighborhood post office postman, all let them all know about the FAIRtax. I remember Ron Malero telling me a story, and it was that he and Elaine would go around, and they may go to a dinner somewhere, and they'd have a palm card for the FAIRtax with them that had the information on it, or the little business cards that have information about the prebate on it, and leave it with the tip for the server in the restaurant. And when you go buy something at a convenience store, hand them the $1 for whatever you're buying, and hand them a card about the FAIRtax. We all need to be doing these things to spread the word, and it's about the impression of the FAIRtax.
And you can get the palm cards, you can get the pre-baked cards at fairtaxstore.org. They are very inexpensive. Shipping is free if I'm not mistaken. And so you can go check that out. But that's all the damage we can do to congress.gov this week. Let's move on to something that you sent me earlier about something pretty good. And that's just, the politicization of the Internal Revenue Service has been going on for decades. I mean,
depends on who's in power.
Well, I mean, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when President Nixon was using the IRS as a political weapon against his political, opponents. So the politicization of the IRS has been going on for decades. Both sides have done it. Whoever has the reins of the IRS just can't resist using it. But you sent me this thing from the westernjournal.com. GOP gives dire warning to the IRS, we've mentioned this not long ago. They were caught red-handed destroying documents, millions of Americans affected. And the point is that the IRS and dealing with it has become just so politicized that doing the right thing is and doing it in an efficient manner is just no longer on the front burner.
Well, the Internal Revenue Service has come under considerable scrutiny here in the recent past because of the extra money that they're getting from the federal government to operate, to fix broken equipment, to move from DOS 1.0 to Windows 11 or whatever the next number is. Well, the warning is the destruction of these documents, 30 million information returns in 2021. This was for the taxes that we filed here just this past April. Republicans are threatening the agency with increased oversight. In other words, if the Republicans win the election here in the fall, they get to take on oversight of the Internal Revenue Service, also with the other operation of the government. And they want to know what the heck happened. Why? And, according to Fox Business, the report basically said that these returns are part of the returns that are filed by small businesses and other organizations to inform the Internal Revenue Service of their transactions. And then the IRS uses a document to sort of marry the information together to verify that what we've put or what you as a taxpayer has put into the return is exactly right. Let's just say you had an interest, an amount increase in interest on a stock. Well, then you've got to pay tax on that. So the limitations the IRS used, they said we can't do all of this because we don't have the proper equipment. So they basically said we're just going to flush everything that we have. The software limitations hindered their ability to process the return, so they just got rid of it.
What strikes me here is if there is something that egregious taking place at a federal agency, why is only one side of the aisle interested in getting to the bottom of what happened? Well, the IRS has become so politicized, it can't do its job. It needs to be replaced.
That's right. The decision to destroy information returns diligently prepared by millions of American taxpayers is ripe for congressional oversight. That was a line out of a letter written by Representatives Kevin Brady, a Republican from Texas, and Tom Rice, Republican of South Carolina. The administration's refusal to respond to the committee, engage in a substantive discussion with staff about the request, and ultimately deny access to the decision memorandum obstructs the Congress's important role to conduct oversight.
That last part is what jumps out at me. The IRS is not letting these Congress people even see their internal memo when the word went out, we're going to destroy all this stuff, because the IRS is later, a couple lines farther down in this article, in May, the IRS told lawmakers that releasing that memo would result in significant risk to the agency. In other words, it'll embarrass the snot out of us, and we don't want that to happen.
We've been found out. Oh my, we have to cover this up. Well, now, in all fairness, the IRS has gotten a lot of grief from Democrats too over their actions and practices. and the new budget, hey, let me tell you, everybody's like, and the thing about budgets in Washington, now, if you were running an agency in Washington and you had a $10 million budget, obviously that's not the right number, and you came in at $9.5 million, do you think you're going to get 10 million the next year? No, you're going to be getting 9 million, 9.5 million, because the Congress says, well, they saved $500,000. We're not going to give them 10 million next year. We'll give them 9.5. You're going to end up as an agency, head of an agency in the government. You're going to spend as much money as Congress gives you, and then you're going to ask for a little bit more the next year because you know that means it costs you more.
You could waste a bunch of it so you can get more next year. That's
Right.
just that whole budgeting process needs to go away here. But we're talking about on $80 billion infusion that the IRS got in this Inflation Reduction Act. And the one thing that I never see mentioned on any news report anywhere, so I like to bring this up as well. Hey, you're turning a $14 billion agency into a $94 billion agency by getting the amount of money, the additional money they've been given is about 4 times what their current budget is. That is absolutely insane.
Well, they're going to hire more agents for enforcement, to crack down on evasion. But they're also hiring 4,000 new customer service workers. They've already done that just here recently. The agency, of course, preparing for the next tax filing season, hired those people, 4,000 agents over customer service workers. They're not agents, they're customer service workers.
Yeah.
It was allocated in the Inflation Reduction Act. They're being trained to assist taxpayers, including phone support, which has struggled with high call volumes during the pandemic.
I can guarantee you that those new customer service agencies don't know beans about what's in the 76,000 pages of tax.
The Internal Revenue Service had high call volumes before the pandemic. Please don't let them cloud that reality in what they're talking about. The phone support is part of the problem in getting anything done with the Internal Revenue Service. The other problem is the antiquated computer systems, which we laughingly call DOS 1.0. I'm sure it's a little bit better, maybe 3.1.
Yeah, the point has been that getting through to the IRS on the telephone has been impossible. That you'll sit on hold for a while and a good while, then they'll disconnect you.
Well, after a while, you got a spider building a web between you and the phone, because you've been sitting there for so long, and you go, wait a minute, I got to go cook dinner. Oh, wait a minute, it's Christmas. Merry Christmas. I've got to go. I've been on the phone April or May, and now it's February again the next year.
It was fun. Another thing that struck out to me as I was reading this article, and you see the line that says that Republicans are threatening the agency with increased oversight. There was a big headline in our local paper here in Ocala, Florida, a couple of days ago that GOP hopefuls, i.e., Republican candidates running for office, are threatening the IRS. Yeah. And of course, the article underneath, highly politicized, saying, well, the Democrats are trying to rescue this agency and get them to where they can fix this backlog they've got. And those mean old Republicans are trying to keep it in the Stone Age, and they're attacking the agency. So just political wrangling over the IRS, in addition to the party in power using it as a weapon. As long as the IRS continues to exist, that they will be a source of political wrangling and animosity to the point. And neither side wants to really solve the problem. They just want to score political points for their agenda. And that is another really good reason we need to get rid of the Internal Revenue Service, get rid of the income tax, and replace it with a fair tax. And don't believe anybody that says, oh, flat tax. We can get rid of the IRS with a flat tax. Because they fail to mention flat tax is a flat income tax.
Well, and that's the thing, and they're interchangeable in general conversation, and that's probably one of the greatest hurdles that I have. I hear it a lot. Oh, the fair tax. Oh, yeah, I love. And there was an actual reply in one of the threads on social media, that the page that belongs to the fair tax, and the person said, well, flat tax, that'd be great. And no, we're talking about the fair tax. So folks, when you're in a conversation with somebody, please go that extra step and say the fair tax is a tax on consumption, a flat tax, even though it's spelled with the same number of letters. Fair tax is consumption. Flat tax, still income. The Internal Revenue Service is still an agency operating in the federal government. And so you have to know, you have to really push past that assumption that they're interchangeable, which they're not.
Well, I have to be reminded of what happened in Illinois when their state income tax was a flat tax, a flat rate tax on income. And the governor up there was saying that's not fair. And he was touting what he called a fair tax plan. And we thought he was infringing on our trademark there. But he was saying that a flat tax isn't fair. We need a progressive, income tax so that the higher income people pay a higher rate. And so so a flat tax is not the fix. People that had it, I don't like it. We want to do it the other way. So how can it be the fix? It's just not.
I think people look at the flat tax and they go, "Oh, it's a postcard. Yeah, that's it. I just put my number down and there's maybe a minimal deduction, but believe me, the door is still open about that far for people to get their foot in to rejigger the flat tax and so you end up with nothing more than, I don't have to fill out 10, 40 and 23 or 4 or 8, 29, 32 pages based on the actual work that goes into providing your tax return. 1040 out the door, flat tax doesn't take care of. Fair tax takes care of all of it. You go to
every week we look at Congress.gov and all of the changes that the Congress critters are trying to make to the tax code. And you look at that, over 2,000 proposals so far. And you look at that and ask the very basic fundamental question, how long will your flat tax stay flat? And the answer is about until the ink dries on the legislation.
Well, that and at every turn of the congressional calendar, you got new people getting elected all the time, and there's gonna be an opportunity for special interest, and we really haven't even talked about the special interest part of the benefit of the fair tax. The lobbyists lose a lot of their power in controlling Congress through their efforts. And that's why a lot of what we talk about on Congress.gov ends up where it does, legislation in the tax code, because
a flat tax is the lobbyist full employment plan, because once they flatten it out, they'll just start over again with their clients trying to buy favorable tax treatment. And so your flat tax ends up the same kind of mess that we've got now. And unfortunately, that's about all the time we've got for this week on Fair Tax Power Radio. Thank you so much for. Yeah, it does go fast. Thanks so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
We are the Fair Tax guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So what do you need from me to get these taxes collected?
Glad you asked, because there is a fair amount of information you need to be aware of.
That's your tax plan?
Oh, no, this is just the revisions for this year's tax plan. What I need from you is you need to keep track of all of your income, as well as any taxes that you've already paid. Also, any gifts that you received or gifts you've given to churches or charities or individuals throughout the entire year. Do you do any side jobs?
Every now and again.
Great, because there's some more information about that right here. Everything you need to know right here. So just simply compile that, send it in to us. Be careful, make sure there's no mistakes. If we do find mistakes were made, we can fine you or, throw you in jail. So you might want to be aware of that.
And what do you need from me?
As an individual, nothing. As a business owner, or if you're doing side jobs, yes, you would have to collect taxes on that, but, it's all right here.